Today we're going to talk about, do animals feel pain? This is a very old story about in the scientific history, and some parts today still in question. Do animals feel pain? We have to mention before, at the beginning of this debate, the big question is about the experiments, human and animal experiments in the history of science. What responsibility do we humans bear for things we do to other people and other creatures in the name of scientific advancement? Yes. We have to remember in this topic, we have to remember the contribution of René Descartes in the 17th century France. He was a philosopher, and he did much contribution to this topic, but partly negative contribution, a negative one. How? Yes. The René Descartes called the animals like machine in his book, and he talked about the animals very negatively, very bad, and this affected the whole scientific era later. Descartes believed that the animals could neither speak nor reason, and therefore they were simply body like mere machines. A mechanical human would lack a mind which only God could bestow, would lack the ability to reason. Descartes was educated from the Jesuit church masters, and he affected from the Christian doctrines, and he afraid of very much about the horror of church on the scientific people. So he changed the subject like humans have soul, but animals have no soul. So you can do whatever you want to animals. They are mere machines. This was very negative thing, and by this act, he simply advocated or promulgated the use of vivisection in the study of anatomy. We have to remember the mind-body dualism of René Descartes at that time, and he separated the mind, another thing. Mind is equal the soul, and there is the body, the other part. This was a dualism, he called. At the antiquity, or before the antiquity time, we have to look at the Alexandrian School of Egypt. There was Herophilus and Erasistratos. At that time, they were very important anatomists. They did vivisections on living bodies, human bodies, taken from the jails, prisoners, and also they used animals in vivisection and dissection experiments at that time. They gather huge knowledge about anatomy, but we don't have their famous books in the hand nowadays. We only heard about them at the 2nd century AD. Roman writer Celsus talked much about them and their achievements using by vivisection. But also Celsus condemned them using vivisections. There was a separation between the scientists. But Galen take over the flag of vivisection after the 2nd AD in Roman time. Galen from western shores of Turkey, from Pergamon city. Later he came to Smyrna at that time. He studied as a doctor in the School of Gladiators at the Izmir, and he has experience about open wounds of the gladiators. And later we know he did some vivisections on animals, maybe on humans also. Then he went to Rome, became very famous, and some of the books about anatomy of Galen, we are in the hand of nowadays. We can examine the books of Galen's about anatomy. We are learning about them still also. We have to remember at the medieval time the point of view of the Christians about the vivisection, because some can say that Christianity can have negative way of looking about the vivisections. Scientific purpose, even in scientific purpose, Christianity condemned the use of vivisection on living bodies, humans or animals. But we have to look for St. Thomas at the 13th century, his Summa Theologica, the famous book. He said human superiority was based on reason, and the human has immortal soul, but animals have no soul. They were irrational, lacked the ability to choose. Animals were created for the sake of man. Cruelty to animals, but he said also, he added that in his book, cruelty to animals could lead to cruelty to other humans. Just because of that, only St. Thomas advocate treating animals in good. Just because of that, they called it Christian compassion. It's a little bit the adopted form of the Roman laws. We have to mention about that. Then a little bit later from René Descartes, we have to look at the examinations of William Harvey. William Harvey, for achieving success in the blood circulation. In his book in Latin, De Motu Cordis, for achievements of William Harvey, he did many vivisections on animals, living animals, and maybe a little bit living humans. And according to Harvey, it was a clear-cut necessary for scientific progress at that time. Many of the other scientists like Francis Bacon, Robert Boyle, also advocated the use of vivisections at that time. But some of them, John Locke, opposed to that. And we have to mention the founder of materialist philosophy from France, Mettrie. Mettrie his book was very famous, The Machine Man, L'Homme Machine. He said, yes, human is a machine, but also animal is a machine. They both of them no souls. Because of that, he escaped from the church at France, immigrated to Prussian kingdom, and died at very early age at the Berlin, La Mettrie. Also, Charles Darwin opposed the use of animals in vivisection examinations. But in France and later in Prussian universities, there was a rivalry, and they did much vivisection and scientific dissection investigations on living bodies. Leading figures of that era, François Magendie, and later his pupil, Claude Bernard, and from Switzerland, Albert von Haller. And they advocate the use of vivisection. But British attitude against, generally against of that, there are some, yes, there are some oppositions in the England about that. One of them very famous, Jeremy Bentham, we have to mention. Jeremy Bentham was a philosopher and statesman, and later he advocated a ban to use animals, vivid animals, in scientific experiments. And later, at the 1876, Jeremy Bentham was English statesman and philosopher. And at the 1789, he published Introduction to Principles of Morals and Legislation. He said the goal of government and society should be utilitarian, actively prohibiting the occurrence of pain or unhappiness, not only humans, but also animals, which are susceptible to pain and unhappiness. That was very, very improved, very ahead of time proclamation of that era. Later, he added to these statements, he was the advocate of Unslavery Movement in England. But later, especially in the 19th century, continental Europe, his books and statements generally overlooked. But he strongly influenced 20th century arguments about the rights of animals, and his books and statements in the England turned to an act of 1876. It was the first attempt to a national government in England to regulate animal experimentation, and the Act of Cruelty to Animals, Act of 1876. It was on the it was until 1986 this act was on duty in England. Yes, after the Bentham, but in the Second World War, especially German army and Japanese Imperial Army did horrible, unbelievable experiments on the human subjects. We don't know exactly how many animals they sacrificed, but did horrible things in the human subjects. And after the Second World War, there was a Nuremberg trials, the doctors' trials in the Nuremberg, a special part of the Nuremberg trials, and the statement, a conclusion after the Nuremberg trials, the doctors' trials, it was formed as the Nuremberg Code of Ethics. This ethic code was very important in the scientific progression. And but after the Second World War, many horrible things continued to apply on human subjects and animals. After the Declaration of Helsinki or Tokyo Declaration, there are many declarations, Code of Ethics after the Nuremberg Code has been arranged. But it was, they did not prevent the use of animals or even humans in the scientific experiments. The whole codes, as I mentioned, did not prevent the use of animals or even humans in the so-called scientific researches. After all, we can surely conclude the words of the Jane Goodall. Yes, animals can feel pain. They have own individual rights. Thank you.